Morning guys, so today I thought I'd do a video about some things that you might be seeing a little bit more within the fitness kind of context, and that's a lot of people kind of proposing that what they will offer you is sports specific training. So let's take a couple examples. So let's say for example that you're a golfer and you play off a very low handicap, or you're let's say +1 or and trying to go pro, or that you're an amateur triathlete that's pretty decent but needs to kind of take their game to another level. Let's say you're a half decent runner, all of these examples. You're a GAA player and we're going to offer you sports specific training. So they'll kind of claim that like they're going to do in their training is more specific to helping you get better at your sport. So they end up doing like little pitter-patter drills through little hurdles, and then they're doing like balancing exercises on a ball and to try and mimic what you're doing on a golf course, or a million different kind of glute activation exercises. Look, there's no doubt at all that a lot of that sort of stuff can be beneficial. Absolutely, no problem at all. However, from what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, when somebody comes into us and needs sports-specific help, is that most of these people come in with two major problems, and this is no different than the average individual who comes in who just wants to lose some weight, get a little bit fitter, tone up a little bit, whatever way you want to frame that. But the things that they'll come in with across all demographics, whether it's sports specific or non-sports specific, is that most people are coming in, they're super tight, meaning they can't simply like, oh, just straighten my leg out here and then try and touch my toes, or they can't get into a couch stretch, so they're mega tight to begin with. And then their strength is really poor. Like they can't simply do basic exercises like squat safely, deadlift safely, do a chin-up, do a push-up, and yet they're looking for sports-specific help, yet their strength base is really low. So what's the point then in doing, let's say, plyometric or leaping, jumping, bounding movements that will help them generate power for their sport, like let's say it's GAA or golf or the dynamic sports like that, when their strength base is so already low that it would be unsafe to do many of those movements unless they had a decent strength base to begin with, and they had decent mobility to begin with. So the problem with sports specific training is that you need to earn the right to do sports specific training, meaning that you need to be able to do all of the basic stuff first, because that'll give you the foundation to get more specific with your training. Where you can get specific in your training is to get somebody to assess you and identify, like, okay, for you need to really work on getting your shoulders a little bit looser. You need to work on your upper back a little bit more. You need to make sure that your training is done in a balanced way that doesn't allow for overuse injuries. This is one of the reasons why I have a big problem with people that will come to us that, let's say, have a bodybuilding or train like a bodybuilder, yet want to perform like an athlete. So they're going in doing leg day, chest day, back day, which very often has led to them being incredibly stiff in a lot of areas, and yet they're training for, let's say, for example, GAA or golf or tennis or like a triathlon. So we need a balance between, let's say, doing sports specific where everything is done like on a balance ball, or there's a million different like upper back activation exercises and glute activation exercises, and where everything looks a little bit, like makey-uppy movements all of the time. So your entire session should have maybe little bits of that. That's fine. But overall, most people still need to actually come back to doing the basics on a consistent level all of the time. And then one last point when it comes to something like, let's say, sports-specific training, is that very often people will use sports people as kind of pariahs of health. They'd be like, oh my God, like they're athletes, so they must feel awesome all the time. Like that rugby player who plays for Ireland must feel great. They don't. They feel awful all the time. They're constantly sore. They're probably on painkillers half the time. They're probably getting cortisone injections for a million different injuries that they've picked up. So putting up sports stars as an example of somebody who's fit and healthy is an absolute massive myth. Where competition starts is where health ends. So what these people recognize is that all bets are off. They're okay with being sore all of the time. They're okay with being tired a lot of the time. They're okay with all of these situations because they're there to win. And that's what you tend to have to give up if you want to be at the next level, is that you have to be willing to be sore and tired and have to go through it. I'm no different. It's just as hard for me to get into the gym and get started as for the average individual who's not going in, a bit tired from the previous session. because they haven't done anything in, let's say, 2 weeks. So what we really want to get across here is that you need to make sure that if you want to make things more sport specific, then earn the right, lock down the basics first, show me good mobility, show me half decent strength, and then we can start to mix it up a little bit more. And then the second thing would be that stop using athletes or people who are at a decent level as examples of people who are healthy. Very often they're not, and that includes me. I have to kind of work my ass off all the time to try and balance what I'm doing in my training, with my life, with my business, and it's just as hard for me as it is for a lot of the other people out there to kind of get ourselves going, regardless of our level. So hope that helps, and any thoughts, stick them below, and let's try not to perpetuate this myth of that, that we need a lot more sport specific training for people who need to kind of lock down the basics first. Thanks, guys.